Good evening, members and officers. Welcome to this audit committee, and thank you to the representatives from BDO who are in attendance this evening. I understand, Max, that this will be your last meeting with us as you go on to pastures new, and I just wanted to put on record on behalf of the committee and the council our thanks to you, Max. I think I can safely say on behalf of our members of the committee that you've always been great in supporting our job here, but also answering any questions when we've had them. So thank you, and we wish you luck on your new journey. So I'm going to start with item 1. Is there any apologies for absence? I do understand that we've had apologies from Councillor Ruth Strong, and Ruth has been substituted by Councillor Pope. So thank you for attending, Councillor Pope. Do we have any other apologies for absence? No? Everyone's here? Okay. So we'll move on to item 2 to approve as an accurate record, a correct record, the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of March. Any issues from members regarding the minutes? No? Okay, I'm happy to move them from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnes has seconded. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? Thank you. So we'll move on to item 3. Do members have any declaration of interest to declare? No, none. Thank you, members. So we'll now move to item 4, the appointment of co-opted audit committee member. Members will be aware that the committee agreed to go out to recruitment for 2 co-opted audit committee members as part of good practice highlighted by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy following the Redmond review. And I'm pleased to say that the panel made up of members of this committee agreed to recommend the appointment of Jonathan Corsten following an interview. Mr. Corsten brings a wealth of experience and knowledge and will be an asset to this committee and to the audit process. We're keen to always be as transparent as we possibly can. Unfortunately, we did not receive enough interest for a second member, but it's been suggested that we may look to go out to another round of recruitment in the near future. I want to thank Councillor Barnes and Councillor Greensmith for joining me on the panel, and of course thanks to Tina, Emma and Fran, our officers who assisted with the recruitment process. I will move that the committee accept the recommendations of item 4 unless there are any other comments or questions from members. Did you want to add anything, Fran? Is that happy with that? Okay, so I'll move the recommendations from the chair that members 1 recommend to council that Jonathan Corsten be co-opted into the audit committee, and that 2 recommend to council that the monitoring officer be authorised to make the relevant changes to the constitution to reflect the co-option. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greensmith seconded. All those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you very much, members. So we'll now move on to item 5, which is the Corporate Risk Management Scorecard, Q4 23-24. I was pleased to see that some of the risks have come down due to some of the issues and targets being addressed that were a concern for the committee, especially the update given around the issue of building control and reacting to the new legislation that had been brought in recently. And it was also good to note that there's been no increased risk since that last update. Please can I ask Tina to take us through the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So today we're bringing to you the Q4 Risk Management Scorecard ended for 2023-24, ended at the 31st of March. So you'll recall that in October we brought you a new risk management strategy and framework, and it was approved in October by Cabinet. The new framework includes a strategy, a policy, a risk appetite statement and a risk management toolkit, which will be adopted and will, going forward into the new year, we'll be reporting under that new framework. This report for 23-24 is under the old framework, so there's no changes to what we've been introducing to you for the rest of the year. Q1 of the new year might also be under the new framework because we're just in the old framework, because we're just in the process of working through how that's going to be implemented. this may not be the last one under the old framework. We may also do quarter one under the old framework, but we'll go through that kind of like next quarter. So I'm not going to take you through the whole report. What I am going to talk about is those risks that remain red risks and those risks that have actually moved. So the report starts on page 11 of your packs. So if we go to page 15 of your pack, so there's the second risk, which is a failure to maintain financial integrity. This risk remains red at E4. Now, this risk is mainly around the medium-term financial plan and the council finances. It's likely to always be E4 or maybe slight movements, slight variations, but it's very unlikely to come down dramatically because of the nature of the risk. It's all about the long-term financial stability of the council, and you'll know that we have been reporting that although we have a balanced budget, it is predicated on a high amount of efficiencies that we have to find in the next few years, and also some uncertainty around government funding. So that does remain a red risk. Risk number 3 on page 16 of your packs, I can actually report that this risk has been reduced in the last quarter of 23-24. Now, this risk is around failure to protect staff, including health and safety issues. So the reason it has actually been reduced is because quite a lot of work has actually gone on around health and safety. So we've actually managed to roll out a lot of the risk assessments. A lot of them have been taking place. We've got a new occupational health contract in place, which is monitored monthly by the Health and Safety Advisor. A 5-year health and safety training plan has been completed, and we're just awaiting for some budget approval for that. Courses, some have been undertaken, and we've got a plan for training into the new financial year. We have also implemented a new system for monitoring HAVs, which is hand and arm vibration and syndrome. And because of all the activity that's happened around health and safety, the risk has actually reduced on that. We still Going forward into the new year, we will still continue with the programme of health and safety inspections to determine the corporate-wide risk position and ensure delivery of more mitigation actions which have been addressed and identified so far. We're also looking at some lone worker devisers and looking at a solution for procurement of those and a thorough review of risk assessments in the Environment Department, which is starting around September 2024. So hopefully as we go forward into the new year, we should actually see that risk coming down even further. So moving on to risk number 7, so on page 22 of your pack, this is a risk that has also been reduced. It's failure to react to changes in legislation. Now, this risk was very much around, the reasons for the increase in this risk was very much around building control staff and the issues that we've been having in being able to secure staff and retain staff in that area. So there was new legislation that came out to say all staff had to undertake a new qualification to first to be able to retain them in this area. And a lot of the staff in that area were of a certain age that, they perhaps didn't want to take new qualifications coming towards the end of the career, didn't want to have those changes. It's quite difficult to recruit to, so the planning department have been quite active. They have supported a number of staff through the qualification where deemed appropriate, and one member of staff is now fully qualified for that. Also, we've undertaken a contract with Erewash Borough Council to carry out building controls inspection, because it's one of those areas where we just didn't have the resources to be able to undertake them ourselves. This contract is for a period of 6 months. And what we'll be doing during that 6 months is assessing whether that is something that we will still continue to work with Erewash or another body to produce, or whether it is something that we are able to do in-house again. So there is some potential solutions around there. So because of that work that's happened, the risk for this one has actually reduced slightly, and it's now an amber risk. We're still looking at some new waste reforms that the government announced, so there's quite a lot of work to do on that, and also changes to Procurement Act is coming in October 2024, so the risk does remain in an amber position around that one. We do hope that it will come down next year, in October, once we get the new procurement strategy sorted out and implemented. Moving on to risk number 5 on page 19. So failure to procure and utilise existing ICT and react to technological changes and prevent data loss. This is one of those that will remain a red risk. It hasn't moved. It remains high as red. And basically, this is because we've had a lot of work identified as part of our digital data and technology strategy and our roadmap that was approved earlier this year at Cabinet. There's a lot of work to do. We do have a senior management restructure that has been undertaken in the past couple of months. We have a new director of transformation, and that work is ongoing. So we will hope that that risk should reduce in the new year, but for now, it does stay static at quite high risk. And the last risk I'm going to talk to you about today is risk number 6 on page 21, and it's a failure to protect and utilise physical assets. You'll probably recall that we do have some issues around some of our assets, particularly in terms of Colton Farm Leisure Centre that has some issues around drainage, which is still ongoing. We're in negotiations with Notts County Council about works that need to happen there. And also we do have a schedule of condition surveys that need to be undertaken on council premises. This work is being undertaken, and again we do hope that that risk will reduce in the new year, but for now it does remain high because those risks are quite significant. And that's all I'm going to present on that report. Is there any questions?
Okay, questions from members. Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, thanks for the report. It is very detailed. It's more of a general question concerning risk 2 and 5, which sort of has an effect on 10 and 11 as well. And that's the Microsoft failure last week. We've got a dog? Did we suffer any of that failure? Are our records still okay? And did we act in time if we did suffer?
Yeah,
more of a general question than a specific.
Yeah. So we called an emergency incident management team meeting where a group of officers get together and evaluate the risk and any potential issues that it might raise. The one risk we did have is around payroll. We was due to, because we actually deliver Rushcliffe Borough Council's payroll for them, and the date that the payroll backs needed to go was on Friday. The system for the mechanism for ensuring that BACS payment goes through was actually down. We couldn't get access to it. So we did meet, we had alternative solutions. We referred to our business continuity plans, which has procedures in place to be able to deal with those kind of things. So we were quite confident that if the system didn't come back online, we could actually deal with and deliver that payroll. I think there might have been some issues at the leisure centres, Fran, but I think they were all quite short-lived.
Yeah, again, it was to do with payments. So there was an issue with the card machines at the leisure sites, and they went down for a short period of time. Again, we had, I think, 3 IMT meetings over the course of the morning to establish the scale of the risk, to make sure that any emerging issues were reported, and to put business continuity plans in place. Fortunately, by around midday, everything had restored and gone back to normal. But it was a useful exercise. It was a good test of business continuity plans as well. And Rebecca Hutchinson, our emergency planning officer, is in the process of putting a log together to report to SLT. But it was actually a very positive response from officers.
Yeah, just thanks for that. It's nice to know that if we get anything again, which is unfortunately likely to happen at some time in the future, we can react positively and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Creamer. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Perhaps deal with them. That was going to be one of them, but perhaps deal with them one at a time. So the first one was on item number 1, risk 1. Although it's green, I was a little concerned we got a £1.3 million overspend in the environment. Was that a one-off, and have we now got it under control, or is this an ongoing issue?
Okay, so Normally, when we undertake a budget exercise in the past, what we've done is something called incremental budgeting, where we've just increased the budget by a percentage for inflation. What we've had is a lot of changes in the Environment Department, especially in terms of development, so housing new houses. So we need to really have a proper look at the budget to make sure that we do have sufficient base budget for the services that we need to deliver. So we're going to be doing something called zero-based budgeting, which looks at the budgets from the ground up and determines what we actually do need to deliver the services. So, for example, for bins, we'll look how many rounds we need, how many people we need to deliver that. So that's kind of like one thing that we are looking at. Also, we did mention that we've last year we approved the digital data and technology strategy, which is looking to digitalise a lot of services throughout the authority. We need a waste management system which will help to deliver efficiencies going forward. So that's something that we're currently working on at the moment. There's been some staff absences, some sickness. We've had the new management restructure. So we think we're hoping that, this year we will be able to get on top of that. But we've got a new director in the Environment Department, who's Fran. But we will have, we've got a new director who is not yet recruited, but then Fran is kind of like acting as that director until we're waiting for him to start. But we should start to see some improvements or this current financial year. But I think when you are in a position where you have had a lot of overspends, it doesn't get better overnight. We probably will need to identify a pot of money that we'll look to pop in the budget to rectify some of the situations. So if we do need some temporary staff to get us where we need to be and some systems to help us to deliver those efficiencies, we'll look at putting some budget aside to help us deliver that.
Thank you for that. If I could just quick follow on. You mentioned that you go to a zero-based budgeting for, is that just for environment?
At the moment, because it's a massive exercise, so really resource intensive, and in finance we just don't have the resources to do that across the board. So what we've done is a bit of a risk-based approach. So we've looked at those areas that we feel are quite risky, environment being the highest of those because of the level of overspends and the level of efficiencies that we think we can make in that area. So we will look at that first, and then we will look to roll out that further, probably for the next round of budget monitoring as well. The next budget process for 26-27.
Yeah. So the zero-based budgeting for environment will effectively come into effect from next April.
It will.
25-26.
Yes, it will. But we are looking at the moment. We are taking some small areas where we feel there is high risk, and we are looking at the budgets in those areas. So we're not going to wait until we've done we prepare the budget for next financial year. We are looking at it in year. So we're looking at some of the elements in environment, but not all of them.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions from members? No? Okay then. I'm going to move the report from the chair and the recommendations that members accept the recommendation to note the progress of actions identified within the corporate risk register. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Barnes. And all those in favour? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 6, the internal audit progress report. Can I ask Max to go through this report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the next 3 items on the agenda are all for me to present. So I'll take them one by one. I'll pause after each report and invite any questions, but I'll start by giving a quick exec summary of the reports. So firstly, we've got our progress report. So this summarises the progress against the internal audit plan for 23-24, as we just finished that plan, but also for 24-25 going forward. So included within this report, we've got the tables on page 38 and 9, and then the executive summaries of the 3 audits completed in the past quarter. So we've got main financial systems, budget setting and efficiency savings, and GDPR information and governance. So if I move to page 38, this shows the completed plan for 23-24. I do have to point out one error, which is on the GDPR information governance line. So where it's got an L in the design column, that should be an M for moderate. So apologies for that, but that should be a moderate. And then you'll see from page 39, we've commenced our field work on the 24-25 plan. And these reports, you'll see the dates in the audit committee column, which shows the dates we plan on presenting these to yourselves. So starting on the main financial systems audit. So this review is a cyclical review we do annually. And this year we focused on accounts receivables, so looking at the processes around charging customers and then through to debt recoveries and write-offs if necessary. So we provided an overall opinion of moderate on both the control design and effectiveness, with 4 medium findings and 1 low finding. So I'll just talk through some of those 4 medium findings now. Firstly, so there was a bit of a sort of, I guess, a lack of detail in terms of some of the reporting to the senior leadership team, which actually the council have acted on quite quickly and is due to improve sort of from this quarter onwards, providing more detailed breakdowns around sort of debt balances and the departments of where the debts originate and things like that to sort of improve the recovery processes and target where that recovery sort of needs to be. Finding 2, which was also a medium, was around the policies for debt recovery and write-offs. So these were outdated, and there was some conditions within the policies that conflicted between the 2. So again, positive management response to say actually that the council are going to relook at these and refresh these, and if possible, bring them into one single policy. There were gaps within our sample testing. So within the review, we pick a sample of debts and I guess do a walkthrough really of what has been the action taken to recover those debts. And typically we target the higher value, longer overdue, because they are the more risky debts. So that there was a few gaps within the council's processes in terms of compliance with the process for this debt recovery. So across our sample of 15, there was 4 where we identified exceptions to the council's policies around the recovery processes, typically resulting in debts becoming sort of quite longer overdue than what the council would like. And then finally, on the rent reviews for properties, there was just a lack of documentation supporting the recalculations for the rent due for some of the property leases, albeit this is more of a sort of document retention finding as opposed to the actual process that was followed. So on to our second audit report, which was the budget setting and efficiency savings. So this really focused on the governance arrangements around budget setting and efficiency savings for 24-25. So the review took place over sort of February, March time and looked back at the previous 6 months of the budget setting process. Our opinion for this area was substantial on the control design and moderate on the control effectiveness. And I think that's probably reflected through the areas of strength, which you'll see is quite significant, almost a page long, which highlights some of the sort of key positives from not only the feedback from interviewing heads of service, but also the clear detail in the actual processes for budget setting. We did find some exceptions or some areas for improvement within the process. So for 24-25, it did start slightly later than planned, and this is partly sort of due to resources and reduce the time to consult with stakeholders across the organisation, albeit we did note there was a full consultation, it's just that the time was reduced for it. And then the minutes for meetings between the finance team and heads of service and portfolio holders weren't minuted, so we couldn't review these and sort of provide assurance over the effectiveness of these, although again they did take place, it's just that document retention and minute taking for them. And then finally, onto the third report, which is the GDPR information and governance, where again, we provided moderate assurance over the control, design and effectiveness with 1 high finding and 2 low. So this review covered quite a wide range of areas on GDPR. So looking at governance arrangements, whether sort of responsibilities of staff and managers were clear and understood, training and areas like that, but also sort of document retention around the records of processing activities, retention schedules, and other documents we'd expect to be in place to support the compliance with GDPR. So again, a lot of good practice you'll see in the areas of strength, particularly around the compliance with the training. So 95.24% compliance with training, which is typically quite high. And also clear processes for reporting breaches, and actually a positive and transparent culture from the council on these breaches. So just to, I guess, draw your attention to the high finding raised. So this is around the lack of a defined record of processing activities. Ultimately, a lot of this information was held across information asset registers managed by system owners. But from our review of these, some of them lacked a bit of detail detail across sort of what information was held. So again, a good positive response from the council in the management response section you'll see, where actually within the next 6 months or so, the new ROPA is being rolled out and staff will be provided with training to ensure these sort of meet the expected standards. So that summarises the progress report and the 3 reviews within there. I'll stop there and invite any questions at all.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from members so far? No? Okay, do you want to carry on, Max?
Yeah, I was going to move to the follow-up report next.
Is that a different item? Right, let me approve this and then... I'm happy to move the report recommendations. Members to note the progress of the delivery against the 2023-2024 internal audit plan, including the executive summary for the following audit reports: main financial systems, counter-fraud and corruption strategy, budget setting and efficiency savings, and GDPR information and governance. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hunt, thank you. And all in favour of accepting that? Thank you so much. So we'll move on to item 7 then, which is the internal audit follow-up report. Once again, Max, do you want to carry on?
Thank you, Chair. So this report, which starts on page 61 of your packs, is a summary of the follow-up of the recommendations from previous audit reports raised, sort of going back to 2020-21 and up to reviews that are completed for 23-24. So every 6 months we do a process of following up on the recommendations with officers and seeking where they are complete documentary evidence to confirm that they have been completed and implemented. And actually we're seeing again positive direction of travel around the completion of recommendations. So if we look at the overall picture, 66% of recommendations that are being raised in total are now complete. And that includes 16% that are not yet due. So actually there's a fall in the amount that are in progress or overdue. There are some recommendations that are overdue, which a few of them are sort of historic recommendations. But again, from the comments provided by management, we're seeing good progress on those. To draw a good example, for example, the risk maturity recommendations, there's 2 that are overdue. However, the risk management strategy had to come first, which, as Tina said before, was presented to the committee at that last meeting. And the follow-up actions on the training and rolling that out will be completed ahead of the next follow-up. So again, that gives a brief summary of the follow-up report. I'll stop there and invite any questions on any of that at all.
Any questions or comments from our members at this stage? No? Nothing to add? Okay. So, for that then, members, I'll move the recommendation that members note the implementation of internal audit recommendations and the revised due date for incomplete recommendations. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Greensmith. All those in favour? Thank you. So we'll move on to item 8 then, which is the internal audit draft annual report for 2023-2024. Again, Max, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. This next report is our annual report. So this is a report we issue to the Council every year, providing our overall opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of the organisation's risk management, control and governance processes within the scope of the work that we took in 23-24. So I'm pleased to say to members we've provided moderate assurance for the year, which is an improvement on 22-23 where we provided limited assurance. So again, there's a positive direction of travel there compared to the prior year. And I really wanted to, on page 89, draw into some of the factors really that supported us in reaching that overall opinion. So firstly, actually, so follow-up, which we mentioned a second ago, has seen a significant improvement. So we did say last year that partly that limited assurance opinion, a contributing factor to that was the lack of engagement in follow-up. But we've seen a significant improvement in the last year, which has been reflected in the implementations of recommendations. Because ultimately, whilst we do our reviews and provide the recommendations, they're only as useful as the implementation of them to improve that sort of control environment. And actually, again, we worked with management to find ways to improve the processes. So I've attended corporate management team meetings in October 2023, and we've brought the recommendation or follow-up process onto the council's Pentana system, which is used for performance management. And that's seen a real improvement in the engagement. Also, across our reports, as I sort of showed you in the progress report, we had 6 reviews which had either moderate assurance on the control design, effectiveness, or both, and only 1 review where we provided limited assurance, which was for safeguarding. And that is an area where, as a lower tier authority, there's a limit on the council's responsibilities for safeguarding compared to an upper tier authority. And also there was other reviews where we provided substantial assurance, so the Community Health and Leisure Services review, and also Council Tax and NNDR. And then overall as well, part of our opinion, so we reflect on the engagement of management and the culture within the organisation, and again, this has been positive throughout the year. So as I say, I've attended some CMT meetings. Throughout our audits, there's been positive engagement from the management team, whether that be from the scoping process to closing meetings and responding to our reports when they're issued in draft. And then finally, I just wanted to sort of draw on the risk management strategy and framework, which, as you know, sort of came to the committee at the last meeting and has been approved by Cabinet. So this sets out the Council's risk management framework, and embedding those will hopefully sort of improve the risk management across the organisation. On the subsequent pages after, so from page 91, I won't go through these in detail because these are all reports you've had throughout the year, but these tables just provide summaries of the reviews we've completed throughout the year, and then some of the key findings. So as I say, I won't talk through them in detail because I'll be repeating content from earlier meetings, but there is some if you want to reflect on that later. And then from page 99, for page 99 to 100, there's just some tables to provide comparisons to prior years, which again shows more medium rated findings, but I think that's reflective in maybe some of the sort of higher risk areas we looked at as part of our plan this year. So again, I'll stop there and invite any questions on the annual report at all from any members.
Thank you for that. I've just got a question in terms of the limited assurance on safeguarding. Obviously, we're aware of the action plan. I know we've discussed this before at this committee. We're aware of the action plan that's in place and we're working towards that. But could I just ask one of the officers to give a verbal update as to how you feel that's progressing at the moment?
Yes, certainly, Chair. It was a limited assurance audit, and as the Chair has referenced, we put an action plan in place at the time. We have a corporate safeguarding group that meets regularly, and that involves all of CMT members. So we're pushing forward on training. The updated Section 11 assessment, which I think was one of the recommendations in the report, was updated and is now being updated again for 24-25. So Nikki Pikal, our safeguarding officer, is giving regular updates to portfolio holder as well and policy advisor in relation to safeguarding elements. There is still an outstanding area looking at DBS checks, which is something that we are moving forward with at the moment, and I've been in meetings with particularly around the leisure space and human resources around how we can improve the processes around those DBS checks and the frequency of them. But yeah, there is some good progress being made in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Creamer first, and then I'll come to Councillor.
Sorry, it's just been answered. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. My question was also going to be around safeguarding. I mean, it's good to see that things are moving forwards. I mean, I'm in a position where I'm a trustee of a small local charity, and I have trustee oversight for for safeguarding. So I know this is an area I'm particularly interested in. The training is relatively straightforward, online course. It's mainly geared for those working with more vulnerable children, more and vulnerable adults. But even so, it still needs to be done by all relevant staff. More concerning is the lack of the problems we've had with DBS, and I'm hoping they're going to get sorted out. I mean, for somebody not to have had a DBS check or not had it renewed for 20 years, that could be worrying. I mean, this is, feeds into reputational risk for the council and all sorts of things should, heaven forbid, something happen. So I'm pleased that things are moving forward in this area.
Just to touch on training, so we do have the level of training around safeguarding. It's through the sort of county council training, but there's various modules and levels. Obviously, some services are doing far more than others, and we've been addressing corporate training across the board. So not just in safeguarding, we've been looking at it across a range of areas, including GDPR, equality, and diversity, and looking at a way, I suppose, particularly for those officers who it's less accessible for them to do online training, which is the sort of traditional, the way that safeguarding training is delivered, and rolling out a programme particularly down at the depot, so that those staff do have that safeguarding training, but at a level that they need in their roles. I mean, obviously they are out and about, they are in our parks, in terms of identifying, reporting, seeing things. They are our eyes on the ground. So we're working on a programme at the moment with them to make sure that they have those really key aspects of reporting safeguarding issues through as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? No? Okay. I mean, all I would say is, obviously we picked up some of the issues that have already been discussed, but good to see that we've received moderate assurance in other areas, and it is a testament to the work that's been going on by our officers and staff across the organisation to improve in these areas and always looking to improve. So that's welcome news. I'm happy to move the recommendations that we note the Internal Audit Annual Report and Head of Internal Audit Operation for 2023-2024. Do I have a second? Councillor Barnes. All those in favour of recommendations? Thank you. The committee will now be moved to closed session to deal with further items which fall under exempt information. So I move under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the ensuing report on the grounds the report involves a likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 and 7 of part of 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Green says thank you. Can I ask everyone to vote? Councillor Creedman Hunt, are you happy with that? Yeah. Happy with that? Yeah. Okay. So we're now in closed session. A member of the public at the back's left, hasn't he? Yeah. I think that's probably wise. Yeah. Thank you.